We've got 7 different stories to cover from 7 different media outlets. It's time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of Regan's Newsround, a once-a-week premiere video that I drop, covering 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets. The 7 stories I've got for you here are: the UK charity declares refugee homelessness emergency as numbers hit record high. That one is from The Guardian. We'll be looking at assisting dying opponents believe that they have the momentum as Streeting criticised for overstepping the mark. That one is from Sky News. I'm going to look at number 10 are sorry for having meat and alcohol at a Diwali event. Not very good for them. An exclusive from iNews about Gary Lineker looking to Trump 2.0 to expand $1 million podcast empire in the US. We'll talk a bit about that later on as well. We also have from The Independent, step up Brexit reset or European allies will lose patience. Starmer has been warned. Also one that's from The Independent. And then from the Financial Times, the UK must offer Trump concessions on China to avoid tariffs, said Trade Committee Chair. That one there we'll look at. And then finally, we will look from Byline Times. Robert Jenrick wasted £15 million on a contaminated site to house asylum seekers that can't be used. It sounds like a story that I've heard before, but maybe some of you guys may not be remembered from that one. And we also have 2 funny videos in between as well. So let's get started. The first one is from The Guardian. The headline: the UK charity declares refugee homelessness emergency as numbers hit a record high. NatCom report says the gap in state support has led to more than 1,940 refugees having no accommodation. The state, you have to remember that the state has been cut to the bare bone by last 14 years of conservative austerity. You have to remember that. We also have to remember that we have not recovered from never recovered really in terms of having the same finances that we used to have pre-Brexit. The councils just don't have the money that they used to have, but we also have to add on top of the housing crisis. One of the biggest factors is obviously a housing crisis with a lack of housing, which means that homes are just too much for some people. And we have the situation where people literally have nowhere else to go, so they're forced onto the street and basically deemed completely useless, worthless, nothing. It's a very sad state of affairs, and not enough is being done about this. I've done a story not too long ago about veteran homelessness, veterans who are literally living on the street. These are former armed forces that we used to work for, that used to serve us, and that's how we're treating them. It's disgusting. Now, it's easy to say Labour need to do more, and you're right, Labour does need to do more. But I do agree in this consensus that Labour, it is going to take time for things to get done. But they are working within a physical bubble, which really does not help them. And because they're trying to work within a physical means, it means that people still continue to suffer to this day. Not enough being done. This is unacceptable. And when we keep talking about we need to find more workers for jobs, literally, there's people here. Why are we not get them on their feet, get them a home so we can get them to work? Because I can guarantee you that these people would rather be working than sitting in these tents in the middle of nowhere. So homelessness among refugees has doubled in the last year to reach record levels as charities hand out tents and sleeping bags to those forced to live on the streets for the first time, according to research. The Number Accommodation Network, and NatCom, an umbrella organisation for 140 frontline organisations working with asylum seekers, refugees and other migrants across the UK, has collected the data and shared it with The Guardian. It reveals a 99% increase in refugee homelessness in the last 12 months, with 1,941 refugees finding themselves without accommodation when including asylum seekers and other migrants. The number regarded as destitute or homelessness rise to 4,146. A total of 850 people were recorded as sleeping rough, a 25% increase on last year's figures. According to NatCom, these are the highest numbers that they have had to deal with. There is a refugee homelessness emergency. The report concludes, yeah, of course there is a homelessness emergency. What's being done about it? It adds that charities are left to fill the gap and provide vital safety nets due to significant gaps in statutory services and a hostile environment for refugees and other migrants. Yeah, the exacerbation about immigrants and this hostile situation is that anyone who is seen homeless or deprived, they are looked and treated indifferently by some sections of the society, thanks to amplified networks like Talk TV and GB News, amplifying their complete disregard to people who are struggling. And it feels in this mindset of negative and hatred that these people have for others. The rise is put down in a large to the large backlog in asylum claims, and the last government attempts to clear that. While refugees and charities welcome the speedier processes of protection claims, they say there is not enough affordable housing available in the private rented sector. For the first time, members of the NatCom network provided more than half a million nights of accommodation, 501,000 to those in need, 51% more than 2021-2022. How the hell did that happen? 500,000. 500,000, guys. Charities doing the work of government. That's what you call a broken government, a broken state. Around half the refugees have managed to access private rented accommodation. Charities have put in place a range of other options, sometimes working with local authorities. Hosting has become a successful, a bit temporary option. Use of night shelters has risen, and 288 properties have been made available by NatCom organisations to accommodate 1,543 people, either for no rent or a peppercorn rent. A new model added to the mix is lodging, which, unlike hosting, where no money changes hands, asks people to pay an affordable rent from their wages or housing benefit. Recommendations for change include extending the Home Office move-on period after someone is evicted for asylum accommodation from 28 to 56 days, and ending hostile environment policies more broadly. Bridget Young, the director of NatCom, said our research shows that thousands of people each year are needlessly pushed into destitute as they go through the asylum and immigration system. Urgent change is needed to ensure that the system doesn't keep driving up levels of homelessness. The Home Office has been approached for comment. And at this time of this article, they have not responded from the looks of it, which is disappointing, I would say, to say the least. It is extremely frustrating that we have this situation. But this is not something that you can throw on Labour. Yes, Labour do need to deal with it, and they do need to show it, and we do need to not just see a reduction in homelessness, but also feel it. We want to feel it by seeing less homeless people on our streets. We want to see those same people that we've seen used to see homelessness all the time. We want to see them in a house, in a home, or in a job, working somewhere, knowing that they've actually gotten opportunities, and not just expecting the charities to pick them up every single time. It's very frustrating that charities are doing this. They should not have to do this, and they rely on donations of others, the generosity of other people to help those who are suffering. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate and I admire the works of all these charities, and the wonderful work they do. But it should not have to be up to them. The state should be acting on this and responding with this accordingly, instead of just sitting and allowing it to happen. Should they be maybe there's a fair argument that they should be quicker on the ball, and I would agree that more needs to be done on this, as many other things. The next one I've got for you guys is from Sky News. The headline is assisting dying opponents believe they have the momentum as Streeting criticised for overstepping the mark. So MPs in the no camp in the assisting dying debate believe those who are undecided are erring towards voting against the legislation when it is debated in the Commons later this month. It's going to be an extremely heated topic because there are arguments and cases for and against, and many people feel that there's not going to be enough dialogue, enough time to talk about this. And I completely understand that question, because there are many consensus, not enough done. There's the argument that not enough consensus has been made on this issue, and I think there is some argument to a certain extent on that. This has been something that has been talked about for a while now. When the Prime Minister was asked about this at question time by an MP, he basically just tried to play it off like, well, we're having a free vote on it. Well, the problem isn't having a free vote on it. The problem is that people want more time to deliberate on it. And we're talking about we're talking about assisting dying, helping people who want to die, and the fear of those who could have their advantage taken off by others as well, because that is something that is entirely possible. I totally understand the criticisms for it, but I really do hope that they take all precautions, if precautions in this, and if there is not enough time to debate this, then they should give more time to debate this, because this is a very sensitive issue. And I am for assisting dying, providing that there are safeguards in place, is my position for those asking. Labour MPs who are opposed to legislating assisting dying believe that the momentum is swinging back in their side, the campaign Sky News has learned. MPs are currently weighing up on whether to back a change in the law that would give terminally ill people with 6 months to live the choice to end their lives. In a meeting in Parliament on Wednesday, Sky News understands Labour MPs are on the opposite side of the argument, agreed that those who are undecided on the bill were leaning towards voting against it. Those who are undecided should be... The consensus is that if you're not sure, best to shoot it down. And that totally makes sense to me. One Labour backbencher involved in the whipping operation for the DOGE told Sky News. Sorry, it said the undecideds are going to break us, we feel. The source said many of those who are undecided were new MPs who had expressed concerns that not enough time had been given to debate the bill. They feel they are too new to be asked to do something as substantive as this, they said. The issues that were being brought up as the potential blocks to voting for the legislation include that doctors would be able to suggest assisting dying to an ill patient, they said. Ooh. Doctors would be able to suggest. It's not saying they have to tell them. They would be able to suggest. The source added, we were elected to sort out the NHS rather than assisting dying. Excuse me, you're there to deal... There are all sorts of things that you need to decide on. You didn't get into this role thinking it was going to be easy, did you? And there is no going back on this. If any doubt, you should vote it out. The terminally ill adults end-of-life bill has been put forward by Labour MP Kim Limbitter. Is due to be debated on the 29th of November, when MPs will be given a free vote. I'm just going to mark that down there. A free vote allowed to vote with their conscience, as opposed to along party lines. In a recent letter to ministers, Cabinet Secretary Simon Case said that the Prime Minister had decided to set aside collective responsibility on the merits of this bill, and that the government will remain neutral on its passive on the matter of assisting dying. There has been much debate about the bill since its details were published on Monday evening, including that the medicine that will end a patient's life will need to be self-administered, and that people must be terminally ill and expected to die within 6 months. These are very strong safeguards. Okay, but what about those who can't administer themselves? What do you do in that regard? Ms. Limbitter, who has supported the former government ministers Lord Falconer and Childline founder Dame Eska Ruskin, believes her proposed legislation is the most robust in the world and contains safeguards that she hopes will reassure those who are on the fence. Yeah, my position for the new MPs who are unsure: read the bill top to bottom, read every single thing in it to be able to make a much better decision on it. They include that 2 independent doctors must confirm a patient is eligible for assisted dying, and that a High Court judge must give their approval. So not only do you need to have 2 independent doctors to approve it, but you also have to have a High Court judge. These are really strong barriers. These are very strong barriers for the bill. For those who oppose it, read the bill. I haven't read the full bill, but just by seeing these contexts, these are strong safeguards. These are very strong safeguards here. The bill will also include punishment for up to 14 years in prison for those who break the law, including coercing someone into ending their own life sentence or pressuring them to take life-ending medicine. Yeah, that's very good. 14 years in prison. That's a big punishment, yeah, if you try to take advantage of it. She has also argued the fact terminally ill patients will have to make the choice themselves and administer the drug themselves, creating an extra level of safeguard and protections. Again, what do you do with those who cannot do it themselves? Who can't administer? My question is, what do you do with those who can't administrate it? However, several cabinet ministers, including Health Secretary Weststreet and Justice Secretary Shabina Mahmood, who would be responsible for the new law, have not spoken out against the legislation. Have spoken out against the legislation, sorry. Mr. Streeton, who has said he intends to vote against the bill, owing to concerns that people might be coerced into taking their own lives, announcing a review into the potential cost of assisted dying if it is implemented. The Health Secretary wanted a new assisted dying law that could come at the expense of other NHS services, and then there could be trade-offs elsewhere. It is common practice for government departments to look at the possible implementation of legislation proposals and ensure that any bills that pass through Parliament is effective and can be enforced. Cost should not be the issue. Cost should not matter on this issue. We're talking about a very sensitive topic here. He's coming across on the terms of money here. We're not interested in the cost of this. We're interested in whether or not it's the right or wrong thing to do. And I'm so far from some of the things that I've read here, it says to me this bill is very, very strong. Sky News understands Ms. Ledbetter said she's disappointed by Mr. Streeton's comments about the bill. I don't blame her. Another Labour MP is voting for the legislation told Sky News they believe Mr. Streeton had overstepped the mark. I think there is a bit of false exercise, they said. It's definitely going to raise eyebrows. It's one thing to sound the alarm, but it's purposefully helping the other side. The MP said that while it feels the momentum is moving away from us, a lot of it will come down to debate and argument in the chamber. Some of the scaremongering tactics might backfire, they added. It's still all to play for, but it's undoubtedly true, and other sides seem to be making headway at the moment. A source close to Ms. Streeton told Sky News West was approached this issue in a genuine and considerate way, setting out his own views while respecting others' views. As a private member's bill has been put down by a backbencher rather than a government minister, the legislation will not receive as much time for consideration as a government bill, but proponents say it could always be amended and voted down in later stages. Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, Tory MP Sir Alex Shelbrooke questioned whether there was enough time had been set aside to debate the bill and urged Keir Starmer to allow 2 days or 16 hours of protected time to examine and debate the legislation before the vote. So Keir replied that I do think there is sufficient time allocated to it, but it is an important issue. Yeah, I understand the concerns. I understand why people want more time to debate it. I understand that. I really, really do. There are I just stress, the word I would just say is read the bill. Read the bill, guys. That's the best way to make a conscious decision on the matter. But from what I've read there, from some of the safeguards seem pretty strong to me. Like, you need to have 2 independent doctors. You need approval from a High Court judge. If you're found to have tried to coerce somebody into doing it, 14 years in prison. Do you really want to face 14 years in prison? You get caught trying to coerce someone into assisting dying. I can understand the anger of some people were saying that doctors should not suggest it, especially those who are terminally ill. No, it should be a doctor's decision. It should be up to a doctor to make that to call to tell them whether or not they think that assisting dying could be something that they could consider. When somebody is terminally ill, when they're on that, when they've only got 6 months to live, that should be something that they consider. Now, I also know another argument inside that people can make, and they're rightfully so, is that some people end up living longer than 6 months, living longer, even though that they've predicted to only last 6 months, and that is true. I'm just looking at my calendar, and I'm just thinking of whether or not I should watch MP's debate on it, because I do actually think it's worth watching live on this debate, because I think it really, really is a very sensitive topic, and I'd be very interested to hear different sides of the spectrum from MPs on it. It's not a topic that's going away anytime soon, guys. Still got a couple of weeks before that, so he is definitely going to be pushing and ahhing on it, that is for sure. Moving away from the assisted dying bill to a very stupid Prime Minister and a very stupid event. Stupid event, let me take that back. Not a stupid event, but very stupid from Number 10, and Number 10 for bringing meat and alcohol to a Diwali event. Number 10 is sorry for meat and alcohol at Diwali event. Number 10 has apologised after meat and alcohol was served at a Downing Street event to celebrate the festivities of Diwali held last month. They didn't really think, whoever organised the food didn't really think so much about it. It's actually incredibly embarrassing. It's incredibly embarrassing when you think about it. Very, very embarrassing. In a letter to the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, Conservative MP Shavina Raha said the decision was not keeping with the customs of many Hindus and displaying a disappointing lack of knowledge of the customs and traditions that many British citizens hold dear. In a statement first reported by Politico, a Downing Street spokesperson said a mistake was made in the organisation of the event. We understand the strength of feeling on the issue and we'd like to apologise to the community and assure them that it will not happen again, he added. Downing Street first began hosting events to celebrate Diwali in 2009 under the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown. The tradition has continued under successive Prime Ministers, including Rishi Sunak, who in 2022 became the first UK Hindu Prime Minister. The 5-day festival, celebrated by Sikhs and Jains as well as Hindus, symbolises new beginnings, the triumph of light over darkness, good over evil, and knowledge over ignorance. There are different interpretations on how Hindus should treat animals. However, cows are considered a sacred animal and many choose not to eat beef, while others avoid meat altogether. Practicing Sikhs and Jains abstain from alcohol and many choose to be vegetarian. The Downing Street spokesperson said the Prime Minister was pleased to welcome a range of communities celebrating Diwali into a reception in Downing Street. He paid tribute to the huge contribution to the British Hindu, Sikh and Jain communities make to our country and how the government is driven by the shared values of hard work, ambition and aspiration. Honestly, whose idea? Who made that call of meat and alcohol? Like, you really, like, it. Whoever organised the event for Labour really should have said something like, we need to make, like, let's not make an idiot of ourselves. Let's not make a mistake here. Let's not do something that would upset other religions or cultures here. Let's make sure we're, nobody thought, we'll just have beer and meat and it's just another reason to have a party. And it's just like, no, it's a bit best not to do that. Maybe have something a bit more on their lines. I know, stupid. It's stupid. They should have really thought about it, and they didn't. And yeah, it's highly embarrassing. Like, cover yourself. Like, really, just cover yourself. Is the message I have there. It's extremely embarrassing and stupid as well. Guys, the next story I've got for you guys is an exclusive from iNews. An interesting one today. An interesting one for sure. So the headline is Gary Lineker looks to Trump 2.0 to expand the $1 million podcast empire in the US. So Gary Lineker's exit from Match of the Day leaves him free to focus his podcast company on the US market, where President Trump offers a major opportunity to sweep up listeners fed with bipartisan politics. So I've not been keeping in the loop with Gary Lineker and his like political sort of opinions lately. Gary Lineker was when he first got called out a few years ago. I think it was like early last year. It was one of the first videos I ever put out on this channel that Gary Lineker fought back against the BBC. It was one of the first videos I ever done on this channel. And he's been for a long time, while he loves football and he's presented Match of the Day and he's literally the face of that show, he's also very vocal about his politics, whether you agree or disagree with his politics. And I do think that he may have some use in the political spectrum with his voice. And I think people will take that on board. He will still be doing sports stuff and football here and there, but I think he has an interesting insight, that is for sure. I know some people probably don't pay much attention to Gary Lineker or the football here, but I do think that he, considering the amount of followers that he has, he has a huge follower base, from his long history of Match of the Day show. And while he has spoken out in times of the past, he can have an influence on his voice can have an influence on other people. So let's read this, guys. So Gary Lineker believes that Donald Trump's presidential victory gives his growing podcast empire a major opportunity to become an influential voice in US politics. With his BBC career set to draw to a close, Lineker is planning a global expansion in Goalhanger, the podcast company behind the hit shows including The Rest is Politics. Lineker, who will give up presenting Match of the Day at the end of this season, has been impressed by the early success of the American spin-off The Centrist Politics show, presented in the UK by Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart. Yeah, they have been a massive success, The Rest in Politics. Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart have been a massive success. Inspired by Lineker's belief that people holding different political views can disagree agreeably, The Rest is Politics US, fronted by Trump's former communications director and Anthony Scaramucci and former BBC journalist Catherine Kay, is now the world's fastest growing political podcast, recording 1 million downloads last month in the United States. Although the US market is saturated with podcasts serving a polarized electorate like the number one ranked Joe Rogan Experience, Lineker is convinced there is demand for a less partisan style of debate. Goalhanger said it was now committing to running the US show throughout the new Trump administration. Expert says the financial rewards could be vast if Lineker shows tap into a negative audience. The UK and US versions of The Rest is Politics join forces for a live stream podcast running through the night of the US elections on the 5th of November. Broadcasting from Spotify's New York studios, guests include British Ambassador to the Washington, Karen Pierce, and David Miliband's entertain viewers seeking an alternative to traditional networks on a YouTube live stream. Speaking ahead of the event, Lineker asked, "I'm trying to think, would it be good for business if he wins?" The answer appears to be yes, with more than 2 million people logging on to watch. The Goalhanger spokesperson said the success of The Rest is Politics US, which has attracted many listeners from the United States, demonstrates that Americans seek a fresh, less partisan perspective. We are excited to provide this new alternative, and Kathy and Anthony are perfectly positioned to provide inside perspective from the Trump administration. Goalhanger's growing ambitions raise the prospect of Lineker, who has 8.8 million ex-followers, seeking to use his influence to speak out on American political issues such as he has done back home, to the annoyance of some at the BBC. He is obliged to follow BBC guidelines, which allowed him to make political observations that fall short of endorsing a political party or campaign until his new contract concludes with the 2026 World Cup. Matt Deegan, a leading podcast consultant and show developer, said Goalhanging are very sensible to go after the US market where the financial rewards can be vast. The successful show, however, are partisan ones, whether right-wing like Ben Shapiro or left-wing like Pod Save America. There isn't a lot of room for being centrist. NPR, National Public Radio, is much lower than the charts. In television, you see CNN, which would normally win an election night's rating, being dwarfed by fan watching to MSNBC and Fox News. Goalhanger, co-founded by Lineker 6 years ago with former broadcasting executives Tony Pasture and Jack Davenport, is now the UK's largest independent podcast producer, reporting 40 million downloads a month. 40 million. It's insane. With hit shows like The Rest is Brand, ranging from politics, history, football, and entertainment, Lineker's and business sidelines will more than compensate for the independent loss of his 1.3 million BBC contract. The guy's racking in money. He doesn't. 1.3 million pounds on his contract. The Rest is History, in which historians Tom Hollowick and Dominic Sandbrook interrogate the past to detangle the present. It's now the world's most popular history podcast with 12 million listeners. Very dominant in the podcast industry. Episodes averaging more than 3 million downloads per month in the US alone, where Hollins and Sandbrook are currently on a sold-out tour. The pair headlined a New York show this week. The backseat driver at Goalhanger, Lineker 64, is not a regular in the company's South London office, but is regularly on the phone giving program suggestions to colleagues. His own on-mic contribution, The Rest is Football, has become increasingly important for the bottom line, as well as the bones of contamination with the BBC. Joined by his MOTD pundits, Alan Shearer and Michael Richards, Lineker gives an unfiltered overview of this week's games during the summer's European Championships, including the assessment that England's performance against Denmark was shit. The subsequent surge in social media interest helped The Rest is Football accumulate 19.6 million downloads and over 66 million views during the championships. Lineker is estimated to have earned more than 125,000 from advertising ranked during the England's Euro Storms, which did not impress BBC bosses. The wealth is shared among Goalhanger's talents, with presenters receiving a third of the profits generated by each podcast. Goalhanger said it's expected its football show to reach even greater heights at 2026 World Cup, which is staged in North America, Canada, and Mexico. Lineker will lead the BBC presenter at the tournament, the final engagement of his contract, allowing him to record new episodes between games from the events at different cities. Spokesperson for the company added, "We're thrilled by the growing popularity of our shows both in the US and around the world, and we're eager to explore opportunities for even greater expansion into these markets." While BBC bosses chose not to renew Lineker's contract on Match of the Day, his podcast success means the corporation must now deal with him as a program's supplier. The rest of history already runs on BBC Sounds, helping to drive listeners to the audio platform. The BBC is now paying Lineker to air the rest of his football on Sounds, so the broadcaster gets some benefit from its talent in their views as to a popular and growing rivalry. Impartiality concerns meant the BBC passed on the rest of his politics before it became a huge success. Adverts will be removed from the rest of his football episodes, which will run on Sound 48 hours after debuting on commercial networks, Spotify and Apple. The panelists are not shy of swearing, so the sound airing will be accompanied by a language warning and strategic beep when required. The goal-hanging team are aware that the podcast boom could easily turn to bust. Lockdown proved a boon for the industry, but the market was unsustainable to sustain the plethora of taking heads programs competing for attention. Spotify culled its programming, ending its $15 million deal with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, whose one series for the platform failed to deliver significant returns. Goalhanger, which is an estimated value of £30 million, could attract bids from global podcast giants such as Spotify or Swedish publisher Acast if it demonstrates it can weather any future downturn. Yeah, so what tends to happen is if it becomes successful, then someone else buys it out, don't they? A separate TV company, Goalhanger Films, which produced documentaries with sports stars including Serena Williams and Mo Salah, but was superseded by the success of the podcast business, has filed for voluntary liquidation according to our company's house filing this week. Freed from the BBC social media and commercial restrictions altogether in the summer 2026, Lineker could explore a number of career avenues. Although too independent-minded to stand for election under a political party banner, Lineker would be a powerful advocate for the causes he supports and his sympathetic treatment of refugees. There could be an offer to present live football odds on BBC competitors such as Sky or Amazon Prime. Yeah, you could potentially see him on either one of them. And a feature-length Netflix documentary could tell the inside story of Lineker, the footballer's England's highs and lows, and his bold move to play in Japan and later transitioning into broadcasting. He has already dabbed in presenting game shows for ITV. There will be a great opportunity to model his own clothing collection. The BBC said it was a mistake when Lineker wore his own Next menswear range to present England's opening game of the Euros this summer, an apparent breach of its guidelines. The BBC has listed with Lineker's long-term relationship with Walker's Crisp. He agreed an extension of £1.2 million the brand ambassador deal last year. He's been an ambassador for the Walker's Crisp brand here in Britain for a very, very long time. But Lineker, who will be 66 when his final BBC contract expires, may choose to take it easy, an associate said. It's been a long stint going to Manchester back in the early hours for Match of the Day. Gary could have carried on with a few changes, but the BBC wanted to take the show in a different direction. What will he do with his Sunday afternoons? Watch more Leicester City, probably. But you never know what will happen with Gary. He might decide to go hunting truffles in Tennessee. Watch out for the rest of this fun guy, jokingly. It's very fascinating to see just how much these podcasts have been so successful, which is why it's if you can make one a success, there's always opportunities. If you can build an empire off it to really, which is exactly what has happened here. You can really rack in the money, and that's exactly what he's done. And kudos to all those who've taken their part in this, who have, the experts that they've put into this. Not really so much for me. It's how much of the politics is he going to take a part in this? Do you think? Do I think that he'll play more into the role of politics? I think he'll be able to speak out more verbally on things now. Not now, but when his contract finally expires with the BBC, because he has been held back. He's been forced to bite his tongue about a lot of things, and I know he hates what's happened with this election. I know he hates that's what the Conservatives were doing during their time, and he was kept being told to dumb it down. And Conservative and politicians were kept telling him stick to football, and whatnot. And it's just like, well, he has an opinion just like everybody else. Why should he be forced to silence his opinion? But other people are allowed to speak their opinion, but he's not. It's just BS as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's not like he's shouting about it on the actual match of the day. You know, he's just sitting there. You know, people following him on Twitter, he should be allowed to tweet whatever he wants. He should be able to say whatever he wants, when he's not on the screen. But that is the situation. But, yep, I do think the rest is politics, is very, very popular. They don't always get it right, as they both got their predictions wrong about the American election, as did I. But they are definitely ones that many people, that listen out to. And they do take in a lot on board from them. And I do recommend checking out the rest of the politics. If you haven't listened to it once, just try it for once and then make a decision on your own. I don't listen to podcasts anymore, probably because I don't have enough time in my life. Speaking not enough time in my life, guys, I think we're going to take a little break. We've got about 35 or so minutes through on this. So I've got a funny video for you guys to kind of break the ice a bit. We've got 3 more stories to go through here on Regan's Newsround. Some of you may have or may have not heard this one already from Matt Green. It was a couple of days ago, this one, but I hope you enjoy it nonetheless. The headline from here is Minister is confronted with things that he said about Trump. Oh dear.
So Donald Trump's heading back to the White House. How do you feel about that, Minister? Well, of course, we in government congratulate him on his victory and look forward to working with him in the future. But how do you feel about it? We look forward to a constructive relationship with his administration. But you're not happy, are you? I don't think my happiness is... In fact, just a few years ago, you said that Donald Trump was a racist, misogynist, wannabe dictator. Do you regret saying that? What I said then is not relevant. After January the 6th, you also said that he should be thrown into jail. Do you still think that? I'm not going to comment on what... You were wrong, weren't you? Sorry? To say all of those things, because he won. He won the election. So everything you said is wrong. I'm sure that Donald Trump has better things to do than worry about things that I said in the past. He's probably not even aware of... We've sent him a tape. What? We put together a tape of all of the rude things that you and your colleagues have said about him over the years, and then we put it on X, and we tagged him and Elon Musk into it. And I believe that Elon Musk has just retweeted it. The legend. Why? What? Why did you do that? It's got over 1 million views already. Yes, but why did you do it? Because it's pretty embarrassing, isn't it? For you. Yeah, it is, but it's also pretty irresponsible, isn't it? And arguably a bit unpatriotic. Unpatriotic? Excuse me, I started wearing a poppy in June. You're trying to wind up 2 notoriously unpredictable, powerful and vengeful men, one of whom spent half of this summer directly targeting this government and trying to foment more rioting in this country. We're just reporting a story. But it's not really a story, is it? Pretty much everyone in the world at some point or another has said something negative about Donald Trump, including his vice president and most of the cabinet he's now appointing. Yes, but most of them have apologised, haven't they? Because they were wrong. How so? Because the American public just re-elected him, didn't they? So he can't be any of the things that they said he was. What? Well, winning an election means that everything that people previously said about you was wrong, and they should apologise. In that case, I think Keir Starmer might like a word. Look, we're just doing our job, holding you to account. Great. And who holds you to account? I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Next up, as Gary Lineker announces he's leaving Match of the Day, we ask, could the famous footballer and crisps mercenary be lining up a run at Archbishop of Canterbury? Or does he have too much of a moral compass for that?
Does he have a moral compass? I do think he has quite a moral compass for taking up such a role, if I'm honest. But guys, check out the link in the description. Matt Green Comedy is the YouTube channel, does some wonderful stuff. But that video, if you want to watch it again, do watch it again if you can. Minister confronted with things he said about Trump. Like, share, subscribe to his channel if you're not already. Absolutely great stuff from him. Guys, before I go to the next article, I just want to remind you, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. Be greatly appreciated. Shares across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. I'd like to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of this year, but I don't know if it's going to happen. But you guys can help me get close to it if you hit that subscribe button. So please consider doing so. If you have been watching my content for a while and you find the content helpful or informative to you, please consider subscribing. It really does help. And if you want to go one step further and financially support me in the work I do here, if you're watching this live in a premiere video, you can leave a super chat down below, or you can join the YouTube membership for as little as 99p. Gives you access to custom emojis, access to the membership community tab, as well as early access for additional content if you upgrade to the $1.99 membership. And if you comment on any of my videos as a YouTube member, you'll always get a response back from me. Sometimes it just takes a couple of days or two. So thank you to anyone who has financially supported me in the work that I do here. It is greatly appreciated. And if you want to find me on any other social medias, whether it is Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky, whatever it may be, do check out the links tree down below. If you click that, it'll take you to all my social medias there, so you can find me on those platforms. The next one I've got for you guys is from The Independent. The headline is "Step Up Brexit Reset, or European allies will lose patience, Starmer has been warned." Now, the call comes after the bank's governor, Andrew Bailey, said the UK should rebuild relations with the European Union, as he warned of the economic consequences of leaving the blog. Now, I have put this in a short video format, but I still wanted to talk a little bit about this because there is this consensus of wanting us to to reset relations with Europe. And if I'm honest, I do think the relationship between us and Europe is going to reset over time with us and them. But this is the big but. We're not going back into the single market and customs union. We're not going to be doing it for a while. Even no matter how much protest and how much frustration and anger and how much things are pointed out, you have to understand that some people just don't want to have that conversation. People don't want to have that conversation, and people, especially older people who voted for Brexit, if they have any inclination of us going back in, they will call it a betrayal. People will be furious. And I know some people don't want that, but that is the reality. But it is a good sign that here the Bank of England, while they are remaining independent, pointing out that that Brexit has hurt the economy. And people need to understand that the economy is hurting because of Brexit. Yes, there are other factors, and there are global factors too, but Brexit is one of the biggest factors that is hurting our economy, that is impaling us to grow as much as we would like. So Keir Starmer has been urged to step up his plans for a post-Brexit reset of relations with the European Union after an unpredicted warning from the Bank of England. In a speech leading to business figures, the bank's governor said that Britain must rebuild a closer relationship with the European Union after our exit from the blog damaged exports. The effect of Brexit had weighed on the economy, and Andrew Bailey added just hours before the latest figures showed the economy flatlining in the months after Labour came to power. In the wake of the governor's warning, the UK former National Security Advisor Lord Ricketts warned that momentum could be lost. Lord Ricketts, who is also the chair of the Lord's European Affairs Committee, that told The Independent he was speaking in a personal capacity, said, "I'm picking up from my European friends that they appreciate the new government's efforts to warm up the tone and rebuild personal contacts, but they are beginning to be impatient for substance. Once the new European Commission is formed, it will be important that the government has more detail to offer on what they want from the reset, otherwise the momentum will be lost." Yeah, so the Labour government needs to be clear about what they really want behind closed doors and not be so public about it as well. Naomi Smith, chief executive of pro-EU campaign group Best for Britain, said, "With the figures today showing historic economic growth and the governor of the Bank of England unequivocally pointing the finger at Brexit, we must expedite the relationship reset with our European allies, whose priorities are quickly changing following the US election. We know the EU is eager to agree a youth mobility scheme and greater defensive cooperation. Our government should now make clear what they want out of the relationship reset, with beneficial regulatory alignment being the best way to remove Brexit trade barriers and continue with hampered growth." Joe Mershkin, Public Affairs Manager at the campaign group European Movement UK, said when it comes to complexities post-Brexit trade negotiations, it's important that we, the UK and the EU, together as partners, carry on moving in the right direction. That direction is towards a closer cooperation which benefits both. Keir has promised to fix Britain's damaged relationship with the EU for the benefit of generations to come, and has scored some successes, including a landmark defensive deal with Germany. But he has faced accusations that his plans are too vague and lack ambition, especially after he rejected Brussels' offer on a deal for a free movement for youth people. The reason he's rejected this because he's scared of upsetting the right wing. He's scared of the impact that it will have, and the problem is that while it will benefit British people, the problem is that British people, because British youngsters, because it will allow them to go into the EU, it also allows them to come into the UK, and the likes of GB News and Talk TV will jump on that. They will amplify that, and it will anger. It will anger some of it will anger it will anger people in the British public. It really will. I do agree he should go with the movement, but he's clearly worried about the political aspect for it. Mr. Bailey was speaking alongside the Chancellor at the annual Mansion House dinner in the City of London. He said he took no position on Brexit per se, but added, "I do have to point out the consequences. The impact on the trade seemed to be good in terms of to be more in goods than service," he said. "But it underlines why we must be alert to and avoid opportunities to rebuild relations while respecting the decision of the British people." Downing Street spokesperson said the Prime Minister has spoken out about his determination to reset our relationship with the European partners. Excuse me. As you can see from the Prime Minister's positive personal engagement since taking office, both at EU level and with individual EU countries, our focus remains on improving our trade, security and investment relationship. Last month, the government independent financial watchdog warned that Brexit was on course to cut EU trade by 15%. In the run-up to the 2016 referendum, Vote Leave campaigners argued that trade would receive a boost from exit in the EU. The documents published alongside the budget by the Office of Budget Responsibility, OBR, said that weak growth in imports and exports over the medium term partly reflected the continuing impact of Brexit, which we expect to reduce the overall trade intensity of the UK by 15% in the long term. Some Vice Chair of the European Movement, Molly Scott-Callow, said it was that as an economic, she was not surprised that the making trade harder with our largest export market had a negative impact on our economy. We don't have to take this on the chin. There are actions we could take to address the trade barriers imposed by Brexit. However, significant economic benefits will remain out of reach unless the government is willing to choose a better deal with with Europe above Trump's US and above other deals which risk undermining our standards. Join at least the EU Custom Union and then build on a force from there. Mr. Bailey's remarks comes a week after Donald Trump swept to victory in the US presidential elections. His plans to hike tariff on all US imports have led to warnings of a doomsday scenario for the UK economy. Mr. Trump's re-election was also triggered renewed calls for the UK to develop closer ties with the EU, which made total sense for people to say such a thing. It's totally understandable for people to make that consensus because of the situation that is coming. You know, we are struggling already, and obviously Donald Trump's election victory means that we are going to be hit by potential tariffs. I know there's lots of stories about, well, we could avoid them, we could talk Trump out of them. If I'm honest, I just don't see us avoiding it. Like, no matter what, however sweetened we'll be, we're going to be hit with something by Trump and America. It's just sadly, it's just going to be that case. I know it's annoying, but that is I feel the unfortunate reality that is coming our way, guys. We'll just have to take it each way as we go along. And speaking of the tariffs, this is from the Financial Times, because we were talking a bit about that. The UK must offer Trump concessions on China to avoid tariffs, says the Trade Committee chair. Labour's Liam Bray argues the government needs to address US concerns about economic security. And this pretty much ties into what Andrew Bailey at the Bank of England was saying. And as I said about the tariffs that are coming, yes, they are going to target more China and the European Union because they are the biggest competitor rivals, but we are still going to be a rival in of itself. I just don't see why Trump would not target the UK. You know, to me, I just don't see him not being nice to the UK. Like, I think if I'm honest, if Boris Johnson or Nigel Farage was the Prime Minister, perhaps we could have got away with it, maybe. But I generally just can't see us avoiding it. Like, whatever sweeteners we throw at Donald Trump, I just can't see it. So, he says the UK should strike a bargain with the US on economic security to avoid catastrophic tariffs when Donald Trump returns to the White House. Labour chair of the House of Commons Business and Trade Committee had urged. Liam Bry said the British government should seek an exemption from any US tariffs by offering to tighten up its inwards investment screening programme and introduce a tougher export control regime. The former cabinet minister told the Financial Times in the 10-20% universal tariff on US imports threatened by Trump would be a catastrophic doomsday scenario for the UK economy, and argued action to avoid them should therefore be a priority. The National Institute of Economic and Social Research has warned that the protectionist measures imposed by Trump could halve UK growth and trigger high inflation and interest rates. It is entirely possible that all these things could happen as a result. It is very possible. Other economics have said that the UK may be less vulnerable to Trumponomics than nations that run a trade surplus on the US. However, they point out that the EU is a bigger export destination for British goods and services than America. That is true. But I do think, it will have an effect of some sort on us. It's just a case of how. Brian argues that the government can limit economic damage to the UK by offering Trump concessions that address his concerns about the security threat posed by China. If there's one thing that President Trump cares about more than tariffs, it's China, he said. The wider Washington establishment has angst and ambitions for partnerships with the UK regarding economic security. While the last Tory administration introduced legislation allowing ministers to review and block inwards investment to the UK on security grounds, Bryce said Joe Biden's administration had signalled it wanted the British government to go further. We could tighten our investment security and bring it closer to where the US is, he said, adding that the big hole in the UK's economic defence was the most concerning was the US was around export security. Bry claimed Chinese involvement in British university research and development partnership had triggered alarm in Washington that Beijing could gain access to the UK's derived intellectual property with potential military applications. The US security establishment doesn't think that the UK has a robust enough control around export security in place. It's a concern across Democrats and Republicans, he said. He also said Britain must take action to reassure American allies and ensure the future of information sharing under the trilateral Axis deal, in which the US, UK, and Australia are collaborating on a naval nuclear program, hypersonic, and AI technologies. And the government spokesperson said, "We are looking forward to working closely with President-elect Trump to improve UK-US trade relationships and support business on both sides of the Atlantic." Trade exports question whether any negotiation with Trump could be confined only to issues concerning security and China, warning that the UK is likely to have wrestled with demands in other sensitive areas such as agriculture. We need to protect our British farmers. They have already suffered significantly, especially with the budget. Let's not leave them out to the dust anymore. Duncan Edwards, the chief executive of Transatlantic Trade Association, British American Business, said he believed the incoming Trump administration was serious about imposing blanket tariffs as a precursor to a negotiation for exemptions for some countries and companies. Those who think that building a tariff wall is just a negotiating tactic may end up being surprised. The UK is not a prime target, but it may risk being swept along unless it can make itself exempt. My own view is there is an opportunity to do that, he added. I do agree with him that the UK is not a prime target. I absolutely 100% agree with that. But to say that we won't get targeted is folly. Former UK Trade Department official Ali Renson, now at consultancy NEC Newgate, said a mini deal with Trump was possible, but the UK would need to make substantive commitments, not just words of intent on China. He may want something a bit more tangible that could be spun as a deal which benefits the US economy, including on agriculture, he added. Well, we know they want the NHS. They want the NHS to America. That is something that is a massive money-making cow machine that they want, which I generally believe that Labour will not offer whatsoever. The Conservatives, they were selling off pieces, but they never sold the whole thing off. And I do wonder, would they be willing to sell it off? If it was the Conservatives here, would they sell the whole thing off? They possibly could do. But I do, don't sell our industry to America. I don't think the Labour government are that stupid enough to do so. I know some people will think they are. But I think either way, whatever decisions Keir Starmer makes, that the British government going to make, it's going to be something that's not... It may not be enough. I mean, there may be ways we can mitigate it. Maybe ways. But it is... We'll have to wait a bit closer to the time when they're actually in power, when he's been sworn in and all that malarkey. That's when it's going to be difficult. That is for sure. The last story I've got for you guys is from Byline Times. I do have one funny video at the end as well for you. So Robert Jenrick wasted £15 million on a contaminated site to house asylum seekers that can't be used. The Conservative ministers purchased the contaminated land and asbestos-ridden buildings despite warning from officials. This does not surprise me. We know that during their reign that they were putting people in disgusting and unsuitable migrants and asylum seekers in disgusting and unreasonable accommodations, such as the hotel, such as the barge, which is a complete waste of taxpayer money, and in certain housing where it was deemed unsafe. And I think I know the one they're talking about, because he was fully aware of, and he was aware of some of the issues, because I remember even covering them last year. I remember covering stories last year about some of the places where some of the asylum seekers were, and I remember getting a lot of grief in the comments saying about who cares about them, and it's just like, well, people cared enough to watch the videos. So to say that nobody didn't care is folly. But we know Mickey Mouse Robert Jenrick, who doesn't like kids, clearly, because he painted over a mural. A very vile man. 15 million wasted on a site that has contamination. Like, it's just like the stupidity. Like, it's just ridiculous. And the thing is, it's not their own money. It's our money, taxpayer money, that they spaffed up against the wall as well. That's the most infuriating thing about all of this. So the former Conservative Minister and Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick and his colleagues, the former Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden, wasted £15.4 million of taxpayer money by fast-tracking the purchase of a site for an asylum centre in Sussex, which could not be used due to its contaminated land and asbestos-ridden building, the new National Audit Office NAO reports reveals. And they were told, and they still did it. The Home Office purchased the site despite officials highlighting significant risk and the acquisition to Jenrick. He said, "I don't care, put them on there." Repairs to the site would have cost a further £20 million to complete, according to the report. So not only did we waste £15.4 million buying this site, but we also could have wasted a further £20 million to get out. But you know what? They would not have repaired it. If they could have done, they would have thrown the people in there. They would have thrown people in there. The owners of the property in Bexhill used variously as a former RAF station, a prison and laboratory, and military training centre for the United Arab Emirates. I left a delegate for 12 years, made a profit of over £9 million on the deal within 8 months. The report published on Friday is scathing about the deal, which broke Whitehall rules in the rush to find sites that could be replaced hotels used by asylum seekers. It was just a means to show that, look, we're taking them out of the hotels, we're getting rid of them, as opposed to doing what the bloody Labour government has done, is deport like 8,000 migrants they've deported in the last 6 months since they come into power. Like they're actually doing their job on deporting them. The Home Office used a private company to negotiate with owners, a limited liabilities company called Brookwell Group Bexhill, which has been set up only a month before the sale. The Home Office later learned it was built on contaminated land and the buildings were full of asbestos, meaning they could not use it to house asylum seekers. The NAO report reveals that the last government set up a small ministers group chaired by Downham, the then Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, to drive through the plans. Jenrick, the then Immigration Minister, visited the site and took a leading role in purchasing it. Was he not told things at the site about how bad it was? According to the NAO, the Home Office was originally alerted to the Bexhill property in 2022 by Clear Springs, a private company which makes about £1 billion over 10 years, housing asylum seekers at the Nakbar Barracks in Kent and in Wales. Clear Spring is one of the 3 contractors helping the Home Office identify sites for asylum accommodation. The vendors of the North Eye site approached them in order to offer the site to the Home Office. And Clear Springs were negotiating leasing the site on behalf of the Home Office up until August 2022. The Home Office then dealt with the vendors directly. On the 11th of August, Brookwell Group Bexhill purchased the property from the UAE for $6.3 million. and on the same day, according to the company Housing Records, negotiated a very large loan from the mortgage broker. The Home Office moved quickly to choose to dispense with established processes, including the requirement of a full business case before approving the purchase. A full assessment of the remediation required on the site did not take place despite significant risk being flagged. The costs of the works were underestimated before contracts were exchanged, committing the Home Office to the purchase. It was at this point the Home Office discovered the full extent of the land contamination and asbestos, but was unable to back out. The remediation costs were estimated to be up to £3.6 million. They knew that they couldn't put them there. They were told that they could not put them there. They were told about the risk. They didn't care. They still bought it. Idiots. Absolute idiots. Bookwell Group Bexhill originally wanted £19.6 million for the site, which would have given them a profit of over £13 million within 8 months by March 2023, but settled for £14.5 million. The Home Office also underestimates the time it would have taken between exchanging contracts and completing the purchase, leading it to pay the vendors an additional £0.9 million. As a result, it purchased the contamination site for £15.4 million. The site remained unused until the general election last year when Labour took over. The previous government had thought about using it as a detention centre, but Labour has paused any plans alongside dropping the Rwanda plan. Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown, MP Chair of the Committee of Public Accounts, said, once again, rushed and misjudged decisions making the resulted in the Home Office overpaying for an asylum accommodation site that is not fit for purpose. He added the Public Accounts Committee has previously warned about the risks to taxpayer money when departments forego due diligence in making decisions at pace. My committee will be following up on this issue to ensure that continuous mistakes are not made and public money is not wasted in future acquisitions. The best way to not waste such public money in future acquisitions is not to vote Tory. A Home Office spokesperson told Byline Times that the reports relates to previous government purchases of the North Eye site, but adding, having inherited an asylum system under exceptional strain with tens of thousands of cases stuck in the backlog, we remain committed to ending the use of hotel and housing people in a more suitable and cost-effective achievement of better value for the taxpayer. We are getting the asylum system moving again, increasing the returns of people who have no right to be here. With over 9,000 people removed since July 2024, we will continue to restore order to the system so it operates swiftly, firmly and fairly. Spokesperson for the Labour Party said the Tories spent 14 years wasting taxpayers' cash to leave Britain with a £22 billion black hole. Now, with the National Audit Office, have revived the extent of the Conservatives' reckless spending. It raises questions about Kemi Baganott's judgment to appoint someone to her shadow cabinet who has no regard for public money. It's the same old Tories. They haven't learned anything. Labour is fixing the foundations to deliver change and then clean up the mess that the Tories left. The piece was written by David Henkler there on behalf of Byline Times there. Yep, it is the same old Tories. That is one thing. But the Labour have wasted £22 billion on a carbon capture project that doesn't work either. So I think that's important to remind people as well. I will also say is that they've got it now, and what can they do with it? Well, they can't do anything with it because it's not a safe location. You can't put anybody there. So, yeah. And the fact that it cost £20 million just to fix it up, like, it's just insane. Insane. Keep Robert Jenrick away from power. The guy's a madman. It's the best advice I can say on that. So guys, before we come to the end of Regan's News Round, I've got one last funny video for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this funny one here. Hopefully, I will not get in trouble for this. Hopefully, cross fingers. There is a bit of music in the background, but it's from Nerdine Skinner's comedy, Trump elects Elon Musk for Dole. It's a Donald Trump parody, so I hope you guys enjoyed this funny video from Nerdine Skinner comedy. Do check out her wonderful work.
Alright, it's me, Donald Trump, with a message to the nations as your president-elect. Whether you like it or not, I'm your president, so get over it, people. I'm here to stay, baby. Now, when I kick things off, I'm going to be starting by opening up a new department based on the cryptocurrency DOGE. Alright, what's that? Oh, Doggy. Doggy style, like what I did with Stormy Daniels? No? What's that? What's that, Elon? Oh, DOGE. DOGE. Oh, look, I don't understand, alright? Look, I don't understand how to pronounce it, but apparently it's based on some kind of meme of a dog, alright? Anyway, I have to do what Elon tells me to do because Elon owns me, like a dog. Oh, I get it, Elon. I like it. Yeah, put me on a leash. Take me for walkies, Elon. All right. Anyway, I'm going to be kicking off this department, which is going to be good and beneficial for the Americans. All right. It's going to be we're going to make the elite rich again. All right. And anyway, I've got to finish this off by also thanking a very special person. That's Beyonce. Thank you, Beyonce, for everything you do. You know what you've done. All right. I'll see you soon, America. Making America great again.
Why did he fake Beyonce? Well, I don't get that bit. I don't get the Beyonce thing. I've obviously missed something there, guys. But I will say this though: Elon Musk, he will fall out with Donald Trump. He will fall out with Donald Trump. A lot of people have those who have been paying attention, Elon Musk has a big ego as well, and eventually that ego will get to him. It will not always be nice and rosy between those two. There will be clashes at some point, that is for sure, guys. So guys, let me know what you guys thought about all 7 stories that we covered today here on Regan's News Round. Let me know your feedback on it all down in the comments section below. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope it found you informative and helpful to you. But just before I go, I have one last thing to say. Are you guys here? Let me just check. Guys, for those who are watching on the premiere live, this is the gang here. They are always over watching. Ollie has turned off the lamp. The orb. I can't turn it back on. But we have the orb, the lava lamp, Cash Dummy, the Cookie Monster, and Pingu, the communist spy, who overwatch and oversee everything on behalf of the channel. So they are the crazy gang behind me there. So yeah, they're always there. Live streams, premiere videos, they're always there lurking in the background. So guys, just before I head out, I just have one last thing to say. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.